Hope everyone's got a brew, tea. Yeah, cheers. But we are coming from Hastings Contemporary. We're in the glamorous, they always have them in the galleries, don't they? Learning studio. Next door to the gallery. So hopefully at the end we can give you a little tour of the gallery space. I was saying it's always hard to do blended online and offline events. There's an expectation now, I think, when we go back to normal, that we'll be doing events in person and online, which kind of throws a whole new spanner in the works of logistics of organising and making events accessible and inclusive. So yeah, a bit of a challenge, one that we're yet to sort of really figure out, but all suggestions welcome.
At the moment we've been teaching we've got half of our students in the class and half of them at home on Zoom, so that's always quite interesting. You know, you'll be teaching something like, sorry, I didn't hear that, and you've like gotta yell it down the camera. It's quite intense.
We did do that. We did start to do that, Katie, with the blended studios. But when we're talking about more public facing events as well, that's when it becomes, we were researching getting some sort of roving 360 microphone that we could put in the middle of like a donut shaped table. Like question chime, or something called talkioke, which I've seen. Have you heard of? Yeah, talkioke is basically one MC, if you like, on a swivel chair, office chair, inside a donut ring table with a microphone, and he does like a Russian relay. And then when the chair stops, when he stops, that's when the next person speaks. But don't worry, I won't be doing that this morning. All right, let's kick off. So like I said, we're going to watch some new films that are like fresh from the editing suite, featuring Mandy. Mandy, do you want to introduce yourself this morning?
Yeah, I'm Mandy, mum of Gabriella and Giovanni, who I seem to never mention. But Gabriella is the one that has more of my support now, because she is still at home with me, has autism, complex needs and sensory processing difficulties, loves project artworks, and feels very valued by joining here. So I support Gabby.
Thank you, Mandy. And we'll do some more introductions as we go on. So I am going to share my screen now, and hopefully we will have sound and vision. I'm not about to bust out some David Bowie, don't worry. Okay, I'm hoping that you'll be able to see this. If I make that bigger. Can I have some thumbs up? Yes.
I think there might be some in this box.
Okay.
No, on the thin one.
We're just replenishing supplies for a moment for the gallery. We have to get the right sellotape. Masking tape is very important. Masking tape is incredibly important in the art world. All right.
Gabby can have really good conversation, and I really enjoy that, because she can talk about politics and she can reason and listen to my views. She very much likes Donald Trump, and I don't. But she'll listen to why I feel it's not a character to, aspire to. And then she'll tell me about him and how he's shaken hands with, let me think of her phrasing. Oh, I can't remember. Anyway, Kim Jong-un over the nuclear situation in North Korea. And she can sometimes tell me things that I haven't heard or I've missed on the TV. And I like that. It's important to me that Gabby's art is represented, not all the time, but sometimes. And the reason for that is because I know it's important to her and she likes it. She's really thrilled and it makes her very proud. Makes her feel worthy, valued, that what she does is appreciated. She knows her own mind. She likes to do things on her terms. She can be extremely lovely company. She is very warm and loving, kind, can be very supportive, especially when it's really needed. She can get very angry at times when she panics at something or has high anxiety over something. She can be easily misunderstood and behaviour can make some people judge her wrongly. I think it would be great if the diagnosis was invisible to people and Gabriella was just Gabriella. I think it'd be easier for her. There would be less pressure for her. I think society's still got a long way to go. I think it's getting there. Just in the, 23 years of Gabriella's diagnosis, I've seen a change. It's very slow, but I have seen a change. I think people are more aware and more familiar. I think it's important. Sometimes people don't even recognise until a little bit of time's passed that Gabriella is any different at all. If people have got knowledge, then they can have understanding. And I do think more people are aware. It's not such a taboo anymore, and people are in society. So there's more frequency, whereas years ago, people were not seen in society. So when Gabriella left school, she had no further education to go to. Gabby's bright and intelligent, and I believed that there was more education and there was more value to her achieving or to receiving that education. And so I asked for a personal budget from the education department at the local authority. which saw a battle of some 2 years and tribunals and this sort of thing. Eventually, I achieved the personal budget for Gabby, and I chose, with the authority of the council, the relevant interests and activities for Gabby. I ran a direct payment account where funds go to, employed as best I could personal assistants to support Gabriella to and from the activities and at the activities, managed the account, the finances, the tax, the pay slips, everything really, the services, the communications with those, the arrangements, the risk assessments. It's a huge package to take on. Most of the time I would be Gabriella's main personal assistant because I couldn't find appropriate staff. And I would also team up with any staff that we did have as her 2-to-1 ratio. Now, Gabriella's education, health and care plan, as she's 25 years old, has ceased. And we are still waiting to find out what package from adult social care we have by way of funding. Lots of the activities have not been agreed to be taken forward. So we're 4 months down the line and we are still within the realms of the previous package. So we're covered, but we're not informed. It's good to wake up in the morning and know that you have a purpose, something to aim for, some reason to be getting dressed, washing your hair, choosing this outfit or that outfit. It's good. I've had to really inquire, really sift through lots and lots of documentation to find what in my heart I felt morally must exist. And I did. And Gabby's benefited from that, but the workload is huge. Once somebody shows me it's possible and how it's possible, and I can get the information that tells me how to arrange it, then I'll fly with it.
Okay. Want to get a bit of more breathing space after that.
Probably best if I wasn't here.
No, of course not. It's so moving watching those again for the third or fourth time in recent days. And Mandy, it's just been an absolute pleasure to have a window into your world with Gabby, and really precious to share this with you. This is like the premiere, this is the first screening. It's not been shared more widely, and it's an opportunity for us to have some open conversations about some of the topics that you touched upon in the film. And thank you so much for your generosity of spirit and time, and for allowing us into your home. Just to give you a bit of background, so the Support Collective brings together people with lived experience of complex needs, learning disability, special needs, neurodiverse people. We're a very inclusive group, we have our own experience of supporting people, whether that's as support workers, siblings, parents, carers. And then we also bring people from the social care sector into the fold every now and again to hear our voice and pull together to find solutions to more person-centered ways of living. And so the aim of these films are to provide a more personal account of what it's like to navigate some quite complex structures within health and social care, to kind of really fight for what we believe should be a human right. And the aim of the films are to share those personal stories and have some genuine peer advocacy in action to create awareness raising. There's nothing like sitting next to someone and sharing your story, and for that person to kind of relate to it in many ways. It's different from sifting through a charity's website trying to find an advice document on how to claim direct payments. So we do feel very strongly that film as an advocacy tool has a lot of power. So it would be interesting to hear your thoughts and feedback and reflection. Mandy, I've said enough, but just for you, you know, sharing this insight, what's it meant for you?
Well, I feel it's important that I can share with other people who may be looking for something for their loved one that is not advertised and made visible, but does exist and could benefit their individual and make their life much better, much happier. So yeah, so my pleasure really is to show other people what Gabriella's managed to achieve and how she achieved it and the benefit of that. So other people might be able to access it.
Thank you, Mandy. And I might add that each film has an accompanying PDF resource of useful information, things that are broken down in layman's terms. So for example, you mentioned in your film about putting together a more bespoke package of activities. So, and that's as part of the EHCP plan that you put together, Education, Health and Care Plan. So there are 2, maybe 3 more films coming up in this particular series, which will look at aspirations for the future, next steps, and also how you're navigating that role as a family advocate and how you're also looking after yourself as well. So there's plenty more to come from that. So next we are going to do some introductions with some of the Support Collective members, followed by a conversation about our recent experience over the last year. I mean, COVID has put a huge spotlight on care for the most vulnerable in society, but the spotlight and the ever-pressing issues around long-term care and support for people with complex needs has been present for so long. But I feel like there's a lot more public conscious around the way we're supporting people, the way we're being sustainable with that. So our conversation will centre on 3 main questions. So first of all, I'm going to just do a big sort of bleh. Right, Mel, hi, can you introduce us?
Hello, I'm Mel. I have a 26-year-old brother called Carl. He has complex needs, autism, sensory processing disorder, and he has very limited verbal communication skills. So talking to him can be quite stressful, not just for him, but for us, or my family too. He lives with my parents at home, so he doesn't have any other sort of like further education or isn't in a residential home or anything. And he attends Project Artworks. He does weekly sessions, which has been it's been great throughout the where they've been able to be open during lockdown. It's been absolutely so beneficial for him. It's like the 1% of his routine which is still intact. So yeah, it's been that's been good.
Thanks, Mel. Thank you so much for joining us on your day off, I might add. And I'm just going to go along my top. Jess is here. Do you want to say hi?
Hello, everybody. Can you hear me okay?
You're on mute. Let me turn myself.
Hello. Hi everyone. I'm communications and project manager at Project Artworks, and just so you're aware, why I'm looking over there is because Esther is just sat there. So I'm not being rude. It's lovely to see you all.
And Andrew. Hi, Andrew.
Hi there. Hello. Hi. I'm Andrew Bruce. I'm from Eastbourne, which some of you may know down the road. I'm not sure where everybody's coming from today, but basically, yeah, I'm actually a disabled person living independently on my own with a support team of personal assistants funded through continuing healthcare at the moment. And my connection with Project Artworks has really initially been on a professional basis when I was supporting them or helping them with some training on it for employers, small employers of PAs. And then basically I've got very attracted to Project Artworks in terms of actually on a personal level, in terms of the kind of parallel issues and oppression that people with complex needs face alongside people like myself who have other complex needs, you know, which actually face the same, many of the same issues. And I've found it's a pleasure to be here today, really, and participate and share some views with you. Thank you.
Thanks, Andrew. Great to see you. Millie.
Hi, I'm Millie. I have a 20, I think, who comes to Project Artworks. Actually, I think I can see one of his paintings behind you, Esther. He has.
Sorry, Millie, could you just repeat the first bit because you broke up a bit there?
Oh, sorry.
Okay.
Yeah, I have a 23-year-old brother called Connor. He has autism and a learning disability, and he comes to Project Artworks. So yes, I've lived with him my whole life, and I also work for Littlegate Farm, which is a charity supporting adults with learning disabilities and autism into paid employment. So I run courses and doing lots of employer engagement, and yes, I also do a little bit of PA work as well.
Thanks, Millie. And I had the pleasure of visiting you down at Littlegate Farm, I think just between the first or second lockdown. Anyway, it's just a fantastic place.
Yeah.
The supported employment programme is brilliant. So I'm looking forward to hearing some more about that. And Lee. Hi, Lee.
Hiya, I'm Flynn's dad. He's 12, he'll be 13 in a couple of months, which is scary.
Lee, we're struggling to hear you a little bit.
How about now? That should be better.
That's much better.
Sorry, I've got the Madonna headset on. It's the only thing way I can speak through it. Yeah, so I'm Flynn's dad. He's 12. He'll be 13 in a couple of months. So it's a bit scary. I don't know where the time's gone. We were talking this morning about I was explaining what scars were, and he's got 2 scars on his abdomen. And I said, well, you had an operation when you were 6 weeks old. And when he was 6 weeks old, I could hold him in just my hands. He was 4 pounds. And the fact that he's going to be 13 in 2 weeks is terrifying. I don't know where the time's gone, but I think the same as the content of the film. We have our very good days and we have our not so very good days. He can be incredibly good fun. He's a good communicator. His speech and language skills are very good, I believe. But equally around the education side, especially, I know we're going to come on to talk about this, especially during the lockdown. I think there's been some huge gaps, and I think there is huge gaps in education for children with special needs. And I've raised it, but it's almost like I feel like I'm talking to a brick wall. But I say, you know, he's fun. We have good times, and we try to just. I try, and it's more me than anybody else. I try and just live for today and not think. I say watching films like that recent film, it's a bit frightening when you think about what's coming over the horizon beyond 18, 19 and up to 25 and then beyond that. I find that bit a bit scary. So I try to just think, let's just concentrate on today. But okay.
Thanks, Lee. And yeah, we'll definitely unpick some of that later on. And then it just wants me to introduce myself. So I'm Esther. I facilitate the Support Collective. I've worked at Project Artworks for about 4 years now. I do have a background in learning and participation programs within the arts and cultural sector. I'm also a sister. My sister, who's, I think there's only like 18 months between us. She's a bit older than me. She has profound and multiple learning disabilities, so the PMLD acronym, but no sort of real diagnosis. But I lately heard about a term which is SWAN, which stands for Syndrome Without a Name. And to be honest with you, like, I don't know, from my perspective, sometimes it's easier to have a diagnosis, or it sometimes labels can be quite hard, and you know there's a lot of debate going on around labels and names at the moment, especially within the context of like the social model of disability and neurodiversity. But anyway, my sister and I grew up together. She now lives in residential care, and it's been a real struggle, which we'll get onto. I haven't seen her since the beginning of December because she's only been allowed one designated visitor, which has been my mum. Only recently allowed to see my mum and dad together. But hopefully this will be the year in September, all being well, that my sister will move into supported living, which my family are building at the minute, which will be a massive step from being in quite residential setting to more in the community. Okay, we are recording this part of the event up until the end of the conversation, where we'll have a Q&A, question and answer. If you have any questions that spring to mind, please post them in the chat. There should be a little call out speech bubble at the bottom where you can type your questions, and then I'll come round at the end and pick out the questions from top to bottom. And we'll hear from you as well. That'll be a chance to introduce yourself, because I know there are some new faces here. Any background noise is that this is actually, you know, a live and operating studio space. So, you know, just bear with us. We are where we are. Okay, so we're going to start off really. So the first sort of question we have to pose to our team are, what have been your main challenges during COVID? And that's for either you or the people that you support. And yeah, I mean, I know sometimes Zoom can be quite awkward with pauses and silence, so I might put a few of you on the spot. So I'm going to go straight to Mel, because she's next to me in that box.
Thank you. Honestly, I thought we'd struggle more than we did. I thought Carl would, because we have like he'd have a timetable with a Monday to Friday, like of all of his activities, so he knew what he was doing on what day. So then having not that 4 months, I honestly, at the beginning, I thought, we're going to really struggle here. The only thing we struggled with was that he didn't understand why we couldn't go to McDonald's. that was it. He seemed to absolutely enjoy this kind of like, I think he saw it as time off. And because he's got limited like verbal communications, how do you explain to someone that we're in a pandemic, which has never happened before, when they can't even tell you when they have a headache or when they feel sick? So because he's a visual learner, it kind of helped like going in when we had to go into a shop, because there's like, you had to stand like 2 meters away, you had to sanitize, you had to wear a mask, which he didn't do. But yeah, he kind of actually took it all in his stride. He's trying to communicate more. It seemed to have just given him time to just like relax and like think about sentences. Like he actually tries to, he's using Makaton as well, form of communication that you say. It's a bit like sign language for those that don't know. but yeah, so even though I thought it would be a big struggle, it's unexpectedly turned into kind of like the most positive year. Like he's so relaxed. So that's my answer to that question.
There's one, someone told me the day, and it was quite a memorable sort of thread that they mentioned, which was like, we're all at sea, but we're in different boats. So even within our community, the experience is so like vast. Millie, as a sort of fellow sibling, is anything chiming from what you've heard from Mel?
Yeah, I mean, it's been a mixture. So Connor, my brother, is an extremely sociable person. His week is jam-packed. He has a job. He goes to Project Artworks. He goes to various respite kind of centres, and he's extremely sociable. And so for everything to just stop suddenly without him being able to comprehend why was hugely difficult at the beginning. Well, it still is now. Connor's understanding is quite limited. From what I can tell, I'm not sure how much he can comprehend of a global pandemic. It's such a huge concept for any person to even digest. So yeah, everything sort of stopped immediately for him, and that was really difficult. He sort of did kind of settle into a routine of just watching DVDs and doing stuff, but it's I think with the changing advice constantly from the government and everything changing so much, I think this past year is really I've made this shift of distrust in Connor, which is really sad, I think, because all the bad news comes from his family. I think it's sort of, he has this distrust that things are going to happen now. And so much of Connor's life and happiness revolves around routine and things, making sure that things happen. And so with things changing constantly and being so unpredictable, it's this huge area of distrust. There's a lot of repetition and just wanting to make sure that things go ahead. And I think also because of that, he's become extremely isolated. And so apart from his usual routines, which is his respite centres and his job, he doesn't really ever want to leave the house anymore. So that's been a struggle. So it's taken its toll on both him and our family. It's been quite intense this year. I hope you got that. Sorry, my internet's quite poor.
Millie, that's covered loads. You've just gone into so much depth around, just the kind of.
Sorry,
it's great. That sort of, how do you explain? How do you kind of explain a pandemic? How have you found that, Mel?
Yeah.
Mel, do you want to chip in here? It's like,
sorry, I thought you said Mel, not Mel. Sorry.
I'm just saying, this is a question for like Lee as well with Flynn, but just what's worked in terms of like trying to kind of explain the pandemic and facilitate.
I mean, I had to look it up. Like I was like, what? So, but we couldn't really. I don't know. Similar to like Millie and Connor, like I don't know how much Carl can comprehend like illness anyway. He's never really been sick, touch wood. So like we just kind of didn't bring it up unless we had to go out. He's such a visual learner, so having the things like in the shops have been so helpful. Like he's kind of like he just accepts it, and I think he weirdly prefers it because nobody's near him.
There are hidden benefits, right?
Yes. Like he likes that. So, but yeah, I think that's how he kind of knows that things are different. But I also don't think there's any point in trying to explain why. It's kind of, in his case, it just makes a meal out of nothing.
And I think you're both like really strong advocates for Connor and Carl. I've really found it hard to kind of maintain like the closeness with my sister through, the distance, and we do FaceTime regularly, and she has a key worker who's fantastic at, making sure that she tries or makes, 2 or 3 attempts a day to like call me, because sometimes I'm working, but it's only so much. Like I just miss the cuddles, I miss the closeness. But I think quite early on in the first lockdown, my sister's OT, occupational therapist, contacted us as a family and just said, there's so much that's changed, in terms of my sister's access to her community services, but also just the social life she had, going to different places, going for coffee. And, her condition is that, you really have to like play each minute by minute, and seize the moment just to go out for a spontaneous walk, coffee, meal. And so the OT said, what can we recreate in the home environment that fulfills the sensory needs, the familiarity of family and home, which was just really refreshing. But I think for others, the contact with professionals that are involved in continuity of care and quality of care has been quite minimal during this period. So I wanted to kind of throw this first question out to Andrew and Lee, which is about your experience during this period, particularly when it comes to the communication that you've had with your case managers. Andrew.
Interestingly enough, I think, as I said, I'm under a continuing healthcare care package, and at times I think I had better communication than my friends and people I know who were on with adult social care. But that said and done, it was still pretty inadequate, and I think certainly I found it. As I said, in terms of the challenges for me across this period, I think there was a difference between the first and the second lockdown. Really, I think the first lockdown back last March was what I call, it was getting used to it time. It was a bit sort of like trying to adjust routines and that. And then we opened up in the summer, and things began to sort of, if you like, become slightly more normal. And then when we locked down again, I found it a lot tougher actually. And I don't know whether other people felt there, certainly for as I'm living on my own, I found that quite a difficult experience to manage. And certainly it's sort of, I felt there was isolation, not just in terms of communication with my kind of professional contacts, in terms of my support, but also a lot of isolation in terms of, as we've all said, family. I think medical services suddenly became remote, and everything was moving online, or you couldn't get a doctor's appointment for love nor money, and still can't to some degree. And I must confess, I've found, and I think also just my usual contact with family. My family lived quite far away, so a bit like you, Esther. I haven't had much personal contact, and I've really kind of missed that side of it. I think actually one area that back to continuing health, in terms of professional contacts. I personally have struggled with the reliance on phone and Zoom. I know Zoom has got fantastic advantages to it, but perhaps it's a generational thing. But for me personally, I've really missed the sort of face-to-face contact. Like last week, I actually met a consultant doctor for the first time in ages and ages, and I can't tell you the difference in quality between that consultation and one done over the phone. You know, where they're like a faceless person. So that's been a difficult challenge for me. I don't know whether that's answering some of your questions, Esther, in terms of where it's gone. So I think it has been damaging. And what I find is that the stories I'm hearing this morning, you know, for me, show a great deal of commonality or shared experience between people with different impairments. You know, whether you've got capacity, not got capacity, whatever the oppression or the issues you face, there are so many common parallels that we can support each other with, I think.
Thanks, Andrew, and you're such an incredible ally to the Support Collective. I wanted to talk to you, Flynn, a bit more about your experience. Sorry, Lee, Flynn's your son. But yeah, Flynn's experience of receiving a diagnosis, and as parents, what that's been like for you. I mean, it's a massive question, but in terms of the impact of the lockdowns on kind of getting the information that you need.
Well, the impact of lockdown, it's a broad-ranging topic. I mean, in terms of like how we've coped during the lockdown, I mean, I suppose, I mean, I'm very fortunate in Catherine. Catherine works with children anyway, so she kept Flynn very occupied and she kept him busy. She kept structure in his day. Flynn loves going to school, but I've raised this several times, and I would say that there simply aren't enough special needs schools out there, in my opinion. And I think the ones that are there are expected to be.
Oops. Lee, you just gone on mute again. We left you at
Sorry, yeah, I should have undiverted my work phone before I came on this. So apologies. It's gone off 3 times. Apologies. Yeah, I simply think, and I've raised it with school. I think there aren't enough special needs schools, and Flynn goes to Glyn Gap, and it's expected to be the be all and end all to all children with any kind of special needs in our local district. And I know some of the kids, they come from as far away. I mean, we live in Battle, so we come from here. I think some kids come from further away, like out as far as Brightling and Burwash. I don't know about now, but I know at one stage there was a child that came from Canberra. So it's covering a ridiculous geographical area, and it's I mean, he's my son, but he probably sits roughly in the middle in terms of learning abilities in his class. But there are children that I think need more help than Flynn's class teachers can give them. There's one child in his class that realistically, there's 4 or 5 teachers in the class to about 9 or 10 kids, and there's one child in Flynn's class that needs 2 or 3 adults with him all the time. And to say that can't have an impact on the other children would be an out and out lie. And equally, there are children that are probably more advanced than Flynn that they can read and write. And should there be a better setting for them, without a shadow of a doubt? And I think the school's trying to be too many things to too many people. And during lockdown, it all but ceased. We would get a call once a week. I think one week I missed the call because I was working, and he's a really nice guy. That was his former class teacher, but then they didn't phone back. So if you missed the call, you then didn't get a call, and I think it was severely lacking. And if it wasn't for Catherine, his days wouldn't have had enough structure. But he missed school a lot, and he needs that. And it's, I say again, it's something I've raised with the school. I think children with special needs, they need more education, not less education. And even before lockdown, like, he gets a home school book, and his home school book would come home, and it would be, yeah, he's had a great day, we've done this, pardon my French, but we buggered about doing this today, and there wasn't enough structure in school. And I took the book to the headmistress one time, and I said, look, read this. I said, you haven't got to read it all. And she read about a couple of weeks worth, and she said, I know what you're going to say. She said, it reads like he's coming to school for a jolly. And that's exactly how it reads. I was reading it, things that, this reads like a play group. They're not there. They're not babies. They need whatever education they can be offered. They need that, and they're just not getting it. And some kind of feel a bit unempowered because I don't really know what to do about it, and there isn't really a plan B. Because I say the school is, and it always gets a, Ofsted always gives it you're remarkable school, but I'm thinking, but there isn't really a benchmark. So it gets an outstanding report, but there is no benchmark. So what are you judging it against? So I know that was a bit rambling, but yeah, I mean, during lockdown, it's been, and in terms of like the medical side of things, that all but went off the radar, OT, dietitians and that just all sort of disappeared all completely. He has some orthopedic stuff for his feet because he tends to walk on tiptoes. A lot of that has all just literally, just gone. We got a letter about the EHCP plan, and it was almost like, this has changed. It will now go to best endeavours. And when his EHC plan first came up, when they sent it back, all the comments we'd made, they didn't put any of them in there. They just, none of it made it to the EHC plan, and we'd annotated it all with post-it notes, and then we found out that the person had tried to scan it with the post-it notes on, and then surprise, surprise, the scanner chewed it to pieces. So something that's not rocket science, is it? So
it's like as if the process couldn't get any more arduous.
I know.
EHC plans are, they're meant to be this wonderful legally binding document that provides you with all of the help you need, but it just mainly just feels like this huge fight. It feels like they're just constantly trying to take it away from you, and you're constantly fighting for them not to. And it feels like just a battle with the HCPs.
Which is pointless because it's just stressful for everyone involved.
And you hear of people going to tribunal, and courts are no place for parents. Courts are places for criminals. So there's got to be a big overhaul. And Lee, thank you, because you touched upon what needs to change, and we'll come to that shortly. So this question, I'm just going to throw it out. What's being part of the support collective meant for you during this period? So I know that you've engaged with Project Artwork Support Collective in different ways. Just a chance to kind of like shout out about what we do as well.
I did there was a PBS positive behavioural support training session that me and our other PA did, which was massively beneficial because it's been a while since I have had since I've done one, and I felt like that had been updated so appropriately, and do you know what, I was able to apply that almost instantly to everything we were doing with my brother, which, to be honest, wasn't a lot. Like, the most we could do was get a coffee and go for walks just to get him out of my mum's hair for a little bit. So, but it was really good, and he's triggered by dogs and things like that, so it was good. It was so helpful. And it's helped, and we're trying to restructure Carl's sort of scheduling going forward, and that has got a really big part to play. So that was really, really helpful. And if anyone gets an opportunity, it's just good to go over. I recommend if you guys do it again, do it, because it's good. Even if you don't apply it, it's good for you. Your understanding on perhaps where different kinds of challenging behaviour comes from, whether it's explosive or non-explosive. So
thanks. There's been some debate about the title of it, positive behaviour support, and I think I was speaking to a colleague the other day, and they said it should be called positive environment support.
That makes more sense, to be honest.
It implies a sort of carrot and stick thing, but it's about the changes you make around your environment. It's bringing it back to the.
I also find the word behaviour always implies that it's explosive, when behaviour sometimes, I know some people are the opposite, they shut down. So behaviour sounds kind of incorrect for that kind of response. Environment sounds so much better.
Because I would think that, Mel, the behaviour, my son doesn't have explosive, challenging behaviour, but he does have behaviour from shutdown and trying to motivate and anxiety and stress. That's different. So yeah, I totally agree.
Would anyone let's get a show of hands who would like to do this training that we speak of? Okay. PBS, positive
PBS.
behaviour support.
Yes.
Okay,
Yeah.
I need to get looking. Mandy, you were going to say something.
Yeah, the support collective for me over lockdown particularly has meant that I've been able to link with people. It's been quite isolating during lockdown, and although Gabrielle has done really well, and as Mel said with Carl, it's been quite positive seeing her be able to adapt to no activities. Her week is generally very busy, and she didn't, everything just shut down. So reading the government websites, they'd said that we could use imaginative ideas, best endeavours, I think, to create and recreate what she already had, which was really difficult, which is why there were chicks in my dining room, because Gabby attends 2 farms a week, and so we couldn't go to the farms. So I thought, well, we'll bring the farm to us. And although Gabby adores pigs, that wasn't going to happen. So we had an incubator, and we've been turning out loads of chicks, which then go back to the farm. But it was quite difficult to try and recreate the activities and fulfill her weeks. So Support Collective was really a link for me, and a sense of reality to sort of break the days of just being by Gabby's side and occupying her with all of the things that she loves to do and keep her happy, which we've done. So yeah, so that's what we've been doing.
And in the next film, you'll see the chicks arriving. Sorry, spoiler alert. At the farm. Yeah.
No, I just wanted to say the Support Collective has helped me both on a professional and a personal basis. I think I've done the Makaton training earlier this year. So the 2 people that I do PA work with are largely nonverbal, and it's been a huge barrier. A lot of our communication is them signing and me guessing, or them trying to say a word and me guessing, and it can be quite frustrating on both ends. Well, particularly their end, you know, they can't communicate their needs, and so that's been really fun. I actually really enjoyed the Makaton course, like learning all the different
It's really
sizes.
good.
It's a lot of fun. And I also, after hearing Kate talk, I think it must have been a couple of years ago now, about PATH, which is Planning Alternative Tomorrows with Hope, something like that. Did I get it right? Oh, amazing. Yeah. So that's something we've been incorporating into our work at Littlegate, especially in creating meaningful goals for the future. And for our trainees that I teach, having a general, oh, there's Mark. Hi, Mark. Yeah. And having a good, genuine say on what they want their future to be, and really planning what their steps can be. And it's helped us with Connor, yeah, so both on a personal and a professional basis. So yeah.
Millie, Andrew, yes.
No, I'm just going to say that I think the Support Collective, I mean, I haven't had the involvement that some of you have, but you know, I think it's so useful to you know, you can make friendships out of it, you know, build friendships. I've certainly met through Project Artworks and you know, different people who you know, I regard as people who I would now, you know, be happy to probably share stuff with that I might not have been willing to share stuff with previously, you know, just on a personal level. I think that's quite important, you know, whether it's in the collective meetings or outside, you know. So I personally think it serves a very, very useful role, and keep it up, Esther.
Well, no, it's what you make of it as well. I mean, it's the collective. For me as well, it's been a great source of comfort, the regular monthly meetups with you as well to share, especially. Thank you. We are going to move along. I've just asked Jess to share some information about PATH, Planning Alternative Tomorrows with Hope, which is a aspirational planning tool using visual graphics, live visual graphics. It's quite dynamic. So yeah, you'll read some more about that in the link that Jess has just shared. So our last question is about what we want to see. There's a lot of conversation thinking about what post-COVID world will look like, and yeah, what needs to change. We've already heard Lee speak about the kind of lack of choice in terms of SEN school, what quality looks like. Would anyone else like to throw anything else into the mix? And then we'll open out to a question and answer from the other people that have joined us.
I just want to touch on something that Lee, sorry.
Sorry, I'm a bit behind, so go ahead.
I just wanted to quickly touch on something that Lee said. So my parents had to send my brother to a residential school, literally in Dorset, because they felt that there was nothing, was like kind of like you said, there wasn't really any structure or like actual kind of like pushing of education. And it broke their hearts that they had to do that, because it was the only way they thought they were going to get any kind of structure at my brother and a little bit of hope for the future. Because you sound so dedicated to Flynn. If you just keep doing that, he will come out the other side, and the worries won't be so intense, because honestly, not being in education has also been probably the best thing for my brother as well. He's a lot more social than he used to be. He was this very angry, upset teen for a long time, and now he's literally, I get cuddles and kisses all the time, which is something I never used to get from him. So I just wanted to like reaffirm that, and I completely agree with you. And I love the sunflower lanyards. Like, they're a bit controversial, but I honestly think that they are, once they become more mainstream, they may help, because I don't want to have to stand and explain sometimes to people, because my brother is he's like, I'm caring for him, he's priority. The other day I was wearing a lanyard because my brother refuses to wear them, so me and a carer were wearing the lanyards, and this woman with her dog immediately saw that he was like on edge, so she just put the dog in the lead and waited to one side, and she said that was a really good visual help. So I think all the visual aids that have come out from lockdown, kind of like I mentioned earlier, in shops and stuff, I feel like they just need to be that. It would be great if they could just keep that out like, all the time. Like, that'd be nice for people who need those visual aids. So
yeah, I agree. I think the pandemic in some respect has brought more of a light onto invisible disabilities and like not assuming things as well. The supermarket could be quite a stressful place for Connor, and so wearing a sunflower lanyard, he's had one for quite a while actually, but it's only kind of in the last year that people have really taken notice of it and seen it and just thought, okay, maybe I'll just give like Connor a little bit of space, and that's been like, yeah, extremely helpful. But I think going forward, I think those voices of disabled people especially need to be more amplified, like including especially maybe more profoundly learning disabled people. I think I've seen a huge disparity between some of the people I work with and my brother, kind of especially with what Mandy was saying about accessing things that are available to people, but there are so many almost like very well kept secrets about things that disabled people are entitled to, and it's whose job is it to find those things? Everything is so inaccessible, even for carers. How on earth are disabled people meant to access them themselves? Things like PIP forms and access to work funding for you know, making reasonable adjustments when you're in employment. It's all of these things are available, but they're so inaccessible. So
they
it's
don't
just
want you to
creating more
know.
voice about how. Yeah, it's like there's this amazing thing here, like it will change your life, but we're not going to tell you about it. Like we're just not going to tell you about it, and we're going to make all the forms horrible, and then once you filled out the forms, we're going to reject it and you'll have to appeal. And it's such a laborious process, and it's tiring for carers, and I'm just and so I can only imagine how tiring it must be for disabled people themselves, you know, having to fight for literally just living a comfortable life, having enough money, having, you know, it's, so I just think those voices and that accessibility, just something needs to change.
You won't be surprised to you won't be surprised to hear that I echo that, Amelia, and because I'm a bit older than some of you here today, and having lived my life as a disabled person, I think I don't want to put a sense of dampener on it, because it's a lot of enthusiasm. I think you've got it's lovely to see the energy that I'm witnessing today with young people. I think the difficulty I find sometimes is there's politically disabled people are in a very you know, we're not in a great position politically, as well as we were when we were fighting for legislation like the Disability Discrimination Act and the Equalities Act, and you know, the Direct Payments Act and legislation. There's a lot less in the way of mobility and support politically around disability. And one of the things I would say in your question, your last question, what I'd like to see, and I think you've already said it, is around amongst all disabled people, there needs to be a much more holistic approach to the whole way in which we regard just people with impairments, because I'm constantly facing the barrier about whether I've got a medical need or a social need. You know, is it or isn't it? You know, which is it? Which is it, isn't it? And if I could wave one wand, it would be to kind of actually get rid of any of that distinction, you know, and just say, you know, we all want to live our lives as ordinary people, making the choices we want to make. So, you know, and whatever that takes, that's a requirement or a need. I don't need it defined by the system, because that just limits us. And that's one of the main problems between the way in which support is organised and funded. It's not, the money comes against a specific need. And if it's not declared a need, you don't get the money. See what I mean? So it's kind of like, that's a major structural change, but I just thought I had to put it there as a plea. So that's my major change. And there are signs of it coming together, but, you know, keep up the fight. Oh dear, said everybody quiet now.
Yeah, you've left us speechless, Andrew.
That makes sense. You understand where I'm coming from?
Yeah.
Absolutely. I think
Oh,
Mandy's
100%, yeah.
Mandy wanted to add in.
What I'd really like to see change for families who are or have been in situations as Gabby was, with regard to education. So this could be something that would help Lee if Flynn were eligible, is that, as Millie was saying, it's kind of swept under the carpet and you don't know what your individual's entitled to, and nobody seems to willingly support telling you that. So there's not full transparency of the options that are available, particularly for education. And I found that I had to find that for myself by reading lots of acts and guidances and codes of practice, because nobody was willing to advertise it. And so that's the road I went down to achieve an educational personal budget for Gabriella. And it was a long journey, and there were many obstacles put in the way to, I think, stop me obtaining that for Gabby. And it lasted until she was 25. So your Flynn is 13. You've got lots of opportunity for education if that was something you wanted to do. So I'd like it to be more visible to people. I'd like it to be discussed as one of the options that people might be entitled to.
Yeah, I think another point I want to make is, I mean, watching those videos, I presume that Gabriella is your full-time. I know that you never consider your child a full-time job, but I presume Gabriella is a full-time job for you as well. And you know, I find it hard, and I think some of it's. I mean, when Flynn was very small and we first went through the bout of applying for his DLA, and I think simply some of those forms would be beyond a lot of people. And that's
I think they're designed that way, though.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Yeah, they are, without a shadow of a doubt. I mean, they are literally, they're mind blowing, and it took me forever, you know, to fill them in. And I suppose in the land of honesty, I suppose sometimes I'm a bit bitter because it usually lands on me, because Catherine's, while she's great with Flynn, she's not the most computer literate of people in the world. So that sort of lands on my doorstep, and I was thinking, God, this is on me again. But I just think the things they've made so hard work, and I watch what's coming down the line. You know, when Flynn's a little bit older, and I think this is probably only going to get more complex. You know what's going to be open to him longer down the line. You know, the money side I don't care too much about, but basically what I want is I want Flynn to have a purpose in life. I want him to have a reason to get up in the morning. You know, I don't want him to just be, oh, Flynn's just someone who lives with us and he bums around watching telly. You know, he enjoys going to school, and I'd like that to carry on. And you know, maybe one day to have some kind of a job. You know, I think all of those things are possible. What that will be and how that will manifest itself, I don't know. But I just simply want him to have a reason to be, and a reason. He can speak and he can walk and he can talk and he can look after himself to a certain extent. He's got zero risk awareness where the road's concerned, so that worries me. But I say, it's just some of these things are just made so hard work. And like you were saying, it'd just be handy if there was some kind of help, some kind of magic one where someone could say, well, look, these are the options that are open to you, rather than you've just got to wade through a mound of paperwork and find it out for yourself. And invariably, there just aren't enough hours in the day to do it, you know.
Oh, sorry, I think you might be on mute. Carry on.
No, you carry on.
I can remember sort of being up until 3 a.m, working on the solicitors who supported us to achieve what we did. And it is a very difficult and long process, particularly when there's nobody advising you or supporting you. So it's just Gabby and I at home now. And yeah, it was very, very difficult trying to work as well. So hours were reduced, everything was done because I believed that it was her right to have that education and to have a bespoke education that fitted her, not the structure that she was receiving through schools that were unfortunately inappropriate. Even though there were special schools, they just couldn't cater specially enough. And so that was my job, to still let her have what she was entitled to, which was education, but to make it right for her. So her interests, what will she engage in? And she'll engage in the things she's interested in and enjoys. So my son has a job that he enjoys and he earns money doing that job. Why shouldn't Gabriella have days where she enjoys what she's doing? And it worked. Hard, but it's worked. Yeah. And I just feel if people were supported more to create something that worked in an individual tailored way, then it would be a much more pleasant life.
It's going to be really interesting to explore in later events and meetups models that people have created. You know, that sentiment that if you want doesn't exist, make it. So yeah, we're going to move on a bit. I know Lee, you wanted to add something quickly there. Did you want to mention?
Yeah, I was just going to come back to what Gabriella's mum was saying about, you know, like special educational needs school. It's just the simple fact is they are there, and often they receive. I'm not saying, I mean, the school's great and they do their best, but I think often, you know, they get outstanding Ofsted reports, but yeah, I think but there's no benchmark. You know, what are you comparing it against? You know, so.
I hear this echoed in other areas anyway. We are moving on. So we're going to open up to the rest of the group who have been sitting very silently, watching, waiting. Who's got any questions? Let me open the chat. Sarah had to say